Hi guys, welcome to the next section, Statistics, Probability, and Information Theory for Predictive Modeling. Now, we move on to the first video of this section that deals with using statistics in predictive modeling. Predictive modeling uses statistics to predict outcomes. In many cases, the trained model predicts the probability of an outcome based on a set of inputs. Statistics are used to determine the variable importance and their correlation. Feature vectors are everywhere. They're used in both learning and inferencing stages in predictive analytics. Consequently, nearly any regression, classification, or clustering model can be used for prediction purposes. We now need to know how to establish the relationship between data attributes to generate feature vectors to be used to train the statistical models. Once we have our predictive models trained with the training data, we need to deploy them commercially for predictive analytics. For example, if we want to develop and deploy the animal-bird classifier, we follow the predictive analytics value chain depicted in this diagram. We will now move to statistical models. A statistical model is at the core of predictive modeling. A statistical model describes the statistical characterization of numerical data, extrapolation or interpolation of data based on some best fit, estimating the probabilistic future behavior of a system based on past behavior, and error estimates of observations. Apart from these, an SM can also be used for spectral analysis of data or to model generated output. More formally, we can also think of a statistical model as an empirical model that relates a set of inputs to one or more outcomes by separating the response variation into signal and noise. Formally, a statistical predictive model could be defined like this, where Y is one or more continuous or categorical response outcomes. X is one or more continuous or categorical predictors. F of X describes predictable variation in Y. E describes a non-predictable variation in Y. Broadly speaking, there are two classes of predicted models, parametric and non-parametric. First, we will look at parametric predictive models. Numerical methods are used to optimize parameters, for example, gradient descent, competitive learning, and so on. Parametric models have a finite, fixed number of parameters theta, regardless of the size of the dataset. Now, we will see non-parametric predictive models. Non-parametric models have a decision tree-like form that is typically optimized using an exhaustive search. Non-parametric models allow the number of parameters to grow with the dataset size. Alternatively, we can think of the predictions as depending on the data and possibly a usually small number of parameters alpha. This type of model is often called memory-based learning. Now, we will move to population and sample. Population refers to the whole set of values or individuals we are interested in. The sample is a subset of the population and is the set of values we actually use in our estimation while developing a predictive model. Let's see random sampling. Random sampling refers to a subset of a population where each individual of the subset has an equal probability of being selected from the population. We will start a Jupyter notebook and create a new Python file. A simple example would be randomly taking 10 people. We are selecting a subset of the population where the probability of being selected is equal for each and every person while computing the average height. When we run it, it will give us this output. Now, using NumPy, we can make our life easier by using this code snippet. The central limit theorem is one of the fundamental theorems in statistics. It states that the average of all samples of a sufficiently large sample size with independent and identically distributed variables is approximately equal to the mean of the sample space, regardless of the size of the distribution, with a finite variance level. A simple example would be to calculate the average height of people in Dhaka City. It will be a lot of work if we take the height of each and every one in the city and then average it. Instead, the central limit theorem states that taking a sufficiently large sample and averaging the height of that sample will give an approximately equal result to if we did it for all people in the city. So if we randomly select 1,000 people, then their average should be almost the same as the arithmetic mean of people in the whole city. Now, if we are given enough samples and if we plot the results on a histogram, it will approach what is known as a normal bell curve. For that, first we will take a random sample from our population. Then we will take the mean of our sample and finally plot our sample on a histogram. This is the output that we will get. Now, repeat this 1,000 times and you'll have what looks like a normal distribution bell curve. Now, the mean, median, and mode can be calculated using either NumPy or SciPy packages with these lines of code. We will get the value for mean, median, and mode, as you can see. Now, we will see standard deviation and variance. Suppose you have some numbers, for example, age, weight, and height. Now, the standard deviation is a measure of how to spread out these numbers. It is often expressed with the sigma. Less technically, it is the square root of the variance. Now, the term variance can be defined as the average of the squared differences from the mean of these numbers. The variance is the expectation of squared deviation from the mean. Often, the variance is used as the measure of the spread of the probability distribution. Variance can be used as one of the key parameters in investment and asset allocation. Now, using the SciPy or NumPy, we can easily compute the standard deviation using these lines of code. Let's move to covariance and correlation. Covariance is a measure showing the extent to which two random variables change in tandem. Correlation, on the other hand, is also a statistical measure that indicates how strongly two variables are related. Statistically saying, covariance lies between negative infinity and positive infinity, but is the measure of correlation. Statically saying, covariance lies between negative infinity and positive infinity, but is the measure of correlation. Correlation is the scaled version of covariance, but lies between -1 and +1. Thus, both the covariance and correlation are measures of the relationship between two variables, but covariance also gives a measure of the degree of their relationship. Let's run the code for covariance and correlation. This will return a 2 into 2 matrix with the values covariance of A covariance of A, B covariance of B, A and covariance of B, B. Since both A and B are one-dimensional sequences, this line of code is equivalent to our covariance A, B, and gives us the correct covariance, which is given here. When two datasets are strongly linked together, we say they have a high correlation. Correlation is positive when two values increase together, but is negative when one value decreases as the other increases. Now, in order to calculate the correlation between two list or array elements, we can either use NumPy or SciPy. Here, we will use NumPy. Both of them are pretty simple and straightforward. Now, this line of code gives us a 2 into 2 matrix. However, correlation coefficient AB01 is equivalent to our np.correlation coefficient AB and gives us the correct correlation coefficient. Now, let's use the stats method of SciPy to compute the correlation coefficient. This gives you a slightly different result with NumPy. Now, we will see an interquartile range and quartiles. The interquartile range is a measure of variability based on dividing a dataset into quartiles. The quartiles divide a rank-ordered dataset into 4 equal parts. The values that separate parts are called the first, second, and third quartiles. These three are commonly denoted by Q1, Q2, and Q3 respectively. Now, to show an example of each, let's define data points having these numbers. Now, for these data points, we will calculate the range using these lines of code. Then, for the same data points, we will further calculate the percentiles using these lines of code. Finally, the IQR could be computed using these lines of code. Next, we will see hypothesis testing. A hypothesis test is based on the assumption and tries to determine whether the assumption is true for the entire population. However, in most of the cases, it is not possible to examine the entire population. In that case, a sample is taken from the population, and a hypothesis test is carried out. If the hypothesis is true for the sample data, then it is accepted, or else it is rejected. Hypothesis tests consider two hypotheses: null hypothesis and alternative hypothesis. The null hypotheses are generally accepted facts, such as the probability of getting heads or tails of a coin flip is 0.5. An alternative hypothesis is a hypothesis we want to prove. For example, we want to find out if a coin is biased or not. Usually, we test a null hypothesis, and if the null hypothesis is false, then we accept the alternative hypothesis. If the null hypothesis is true, then we reject alternative hypothesis. Hypothesis tests are important in statistics because they give better insights into data. Using this test, we can determine the statistical significance of data. It is used in drug tests to find out effects or if some information is present in some data, and so on. Now, let's move to chi-square tests. A chi-square test is the measure of the relationship between categorical and numerical data. There are two types of statistical variables: numerical and categorical variables. Now, to calculate the p-value, we use the chi-square test. However, this test only works for categorical data, such as gender, men, women, not numerical data, such as height or weight. Also, the numbers must be large enough so that each entry must be greater than equal to 5. In our example, we have values such as 209, 280, 225, and 248, which is good. Now, p less than 0.05 is a usual test for dependence. In this case, p is less than 0.05, so we believe the variables are dependent. In other words, men and women probably have the same preference for beach holidays or cruises. Now, let's see chi-square independence test. Suppose we have some survey dataset that tries to check if the smoking habit has any dependency with the sex. Now, we would like to test H0 to check if the two attributes smoke and sex are independent versus H1 that the two attributes, smoke and sex, are dependent. For this type of problem, we can use the chi-square independence test. Now, to do this, we use the SciPy package. At first, we import the required packages. Then, download the dataset from this website. We will load the dataset using this line of code. Now, it's time to tabulate the two variables with row and column variables respectively. Then, let's create the observed table for analysis. You can ignore the warnings. This means p-value is very large, which indicates weak evidence against the null hypothesis. So we fail to reject the null hypothesis, that is, the two attributes, smoke and sex, are independent.